Passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Franchise Euphoria, where we are helping startup and growth entrepreneurs dream with intention, build with strategy, and grow profitably. Hello, everybody. Josh Brown here. And if you're familiar or a consistent listener of the show, you will notice that that is an entirely new introduction. And that's really the subject of today's tip of the day. I'll naturally have a tip at the end, but you know, I've had the Franchise Euphoria podcast now for, I think, a little bit over 7 months. I think I officially launched it in November 2013, and it has been absolutely amazing and really been the best thing I've ever done. I've had the opportunity to meet with so many people. I've had people call me and email me, really from a lot of different places. I think the podcast has been downloaded in almost 50 countries and doing really well in iTunes and everything. But there was something I realized just recently that wasn't necessarily missing, but that I wasn't fully capturing everything that I wanted to capture in the podcast. And so I sort of decided to make a pivot. And anybody who's an entrepreneur out there or has owned a business certainly understands what it's like to make a pivot. And I think it's a really important and valuable thing to talk about. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about it on this episode. You know, as you're going along with the business, as I have been with Franchise Euphoria, originally it was the notion of, okay, this is going to be the podcast to help people and provide them with strategy just relating to franchising. And while that's still a huge part of what we do, and it's a huge part of what I do, what I've realized over the course of doing this is that I really enjoy helping a lot of different kinds of startup and growth entrepreneurs. It's what I do in my legal practice, and it's what I want to continue to do with this podcast. And, you know, the one consistency having to do with franchising is that, you know, there's startups and growth entrepreneurs that simply, they want to grow, but they may not want to grow through the franchise model. Well, there's licensing models, there's growth through just a traditional corporate structure, but really my secret sauce is, I think, helping people create businesses that even if you're not going to grow through the franchise model, at least you're going to create franchise-like systems so that you can grow profitably, so that you can build businesses that have solid foundations with systems and processes. Because at the end of the day, that is simply the only way that you can scale a business. And if you're looking to take your business to the next level, if you're looking to position yourself where you can actually take a vacation and the business will still run, or position yourself to sell your business down the road, then it is very, very important to have the systems and operations in place. And another thing that I realized through this podcast and through a lot of the legal work that I do is that very few people, when they're considering buying a franchise, actually think about whether or not they are more like a traditional entrepreneur that should start it themselves, or should they go buy a system that's already made? What happens is people will think about that, but they'll think about it from the perspective of, oh, what's the quickest way for me to be successful? Or, geez, the franchise looks like it's just a business in a box. And I've talked a lot about that on this podcast. But one of the things I've realized as I've talked about it more and more and more is that I really need to dive in to that part of the equation a little bit more. And I think that's really what touches upon the dreaming aspect. I mean, when you're sitting there dreaming about what your business of your dreams is or what you'd like to be doing, you really need to be thinking about what type of business you should be operating, because there's certain people that make for great franchise owners and certain people who don't. So all of these thoughts going through my head, and I started thinking, I need to recapture some things. I need to make a slight pivot in the franchise euphoria front, and really need to position myself through this podcast to really capture what I really want to achieve. Hence, working and helping startup and growth entrepreneurs dream with intention, build with strategy, and grow profitably. And that may be growth to the franchise model. That may be growth as a franchise owner, or it simply may be growth as an entrepreneur without the franchise structure at all. But really, that's my sweet spot. That's what I really, really enjoy doing. And so I wanted to make the announcement on the podcast that, going forward, we're really going to be focusing on a bigger picture. We will still be touching a tremendous amount on franchising, because franchising, as I've said so often, is such a great way to grow a business. It's such a great way for the right person to become a business owner. And so I just love the model. But what I love most is that every kind of business, every kind of entrepreneur, every kind of startup and growth entrepreneur needs to understand the value of having franchise-like systems for their business. And the sooner that they can implement those, the faster that they will build up a business that has a solid foundation and then can be in a position to grow. So I'm curious what you think about that. I mean, I'm going to start instituting some of the change. Nothing's really going to change in terms of I still do an interview every Thursday. I am going to start releasing my tips of the day on Tuesday. So there'll be a Thursday release date. But I'd love to hear back from you about all that. So if you have a few moments, I'd love for you to email me at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Let me know if you like the change, or the pivot, I should say, because it's not a full-fledged change to the show. And really, really would love your feedback. But like I said, I think it's an important lesson to learn, because we as business owners, look, we don't have all this stuff figured out. You learn as you go. We've talked about on so many different episodes the value of just taking action, of putting one foot in front of the other. And I think this is a prime example. I've taken a lot of action just in getting this podcast going, doing it consistently. And now 7 months in, I've realized, wow, there's a whole sort of piece of the pie out there that I really have been speaking to, but I don't think I've been framing it the right way, because I think I've been almost too narrow in my focus, when I really believe there's a lot of great things that we can help many more startup and growth entrepreneurs with, even if they're not necessarily considering franchising right now. So with that said, I think for today's tip of the day, before I let you go, I'd like to start with the whole notion of dreaming with intention. I think it is so, so important for just us as humans, but also for the entrepreneurial spirit to kind of get your juices going, to really dream a lot. And that may sound kind of foo-foo-y and whatever you want to call it. But the reality is, we all have dreams. We all have aspirations. We all have things that we want to accomplish. But I also think it's important, as part of dreaming, that you're dreaming intentionally. And some people might say, well, how do you do that? Well, here's the thing. When you're dreaming and you're just dreaming about all sorts of different stuff, heck, you may dream that, okay, you come into $1 million tomorrow, or that you just, all of a sudden you make enough money and now you can move to the beach, or you may have those kinds of dreams. But when you're dreaming with intention as far as your business goes, I think it's the whole idea of asking yourself and thinking about, wow, what would my dream business look like? What are my skills that I have accumulated over the years? Where are my passions, and how can I turn that into a business of my dreams? And I think you really need to write that down. I think you, as ridiculous as it may seem, I think you need to write down all your dreams on a piece of paper. And I think next to what your dream is, you need to write down how it's possible, how you can take that to the next step. Is it possible? Is this something that you actually can do from the perspective of you have experience doing, or you know someone who has experience doing, or you have a game plan together? So really the first step for any kind of entrepreneur, whether you realize it or not, there's dreaming, and then there's dreaming with intention. Okay. And it's not until you dream with intention till you move that next step to where you really start having what is going to become a viable business. And so I think if you take a step back, whether you're still in a corporate job right now, whether you are looking for work, whether you've been recently laid off, whatever the position that you're in, if you're a startup or a growth-minded entrepreneur, I think you always need to be dreaming with intention and dreaming about not only what your business is going to become, but if you've already got a business, what you want it to be. And I think that doing so intentionally takes you one step further down the road. So anyways, I hope that is a helpful tip of the day. I think the bigger part of this podcast was really to announce sort of the pivot that I'm making with Franchise Euphoria. Like I said, I so appreciate everybody's feedback, and really don't be bashful. Send me an email again at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com and let me know what you're thinking. I've also wanted to let you guys know that we're going to have some exciting new announcements, some more announcements coming to Franchise Euphoria here in the coming 3-4 weeks. So I hate to lead you on like that, but I don't want to say anything about it right now, but some real exciting things that are coming down the pipeline in the future. So again, thank you everybody who's out there, people who I've met, people who I have yet to meet. I would love to meet all of you. I mean, if you haven't already, find me online on Facebook or Twitter under Indie Franchise Law. Connect with me. I love to hear from you, from people. I've met such an amazing community of people online, and it's just been kind of fascinating because you would never think that you can feel such a closeness to people that you've never actually physically met, but it's really been an incredible thing to experience that. So if you haven't reached out to me already, please do. Again, josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. And let's see, on Thursday of this week, I'm trying to remember what interview I'm releasing. I don't even know, but it's going to be a doozy. I can assure you of that one. So tune in on Thursday of this week for another great new interview episode. And take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.